Most people don't lose love because they're unlovable. They lose love because they bond in ways that quietly push it away. They get close, but then their wounds take the lead. They want connection, but their defenses build walls faster than they can build trust. They crave intimacy, yet the moment love shows up, something inside them panics. And if you've ever wondered why someone pulls back right when things start to feel real, this is the truth nobody tells you. You know what's ironic? Most people think love fails because two people aren't compatible. But the truth is darker and more human. Love doesn't fail because people don't care. Love fails because people care so deeply that they don't know how to handle it. They bond emotionally in ways that protect them, but those same protections push love away. Let's start here. You meet someone, you feel that spark. The connection is real, the energy is undeniable. But beneath the surface, something you can't see begins shifting, not in you, in them. And here's what almost no one understands. People don't bond with their hearts first. They bond with their fears, with their wounds, with their old stories, with the ghosts of everyone who ever hurt them. In the beginning, they aren't bonding with you. They're bonding with what loving you would require them to face. And that's where everything gets complicated. Because the moment emotions deepen, the human mind does something strange. It opens the door to love and simultaneously starts preparing for loss. It's automatic. It's subconscious. It's survival. And for many people, that survival instinct kicks in harder than the desire to connect. So instead of leaning in, they start pulling away, not because you did anything wrong, but because your presence wakes up things in them they've spent years avoiding. Let's break it down. Some people bond through fear. Every time they care, they fear the ending more than they allow themselves to enjoy the beginning. Some bond through self-protection. They love quietly, cautiously, from a distance. So if things fall apart, they can say, I knew this would happen. Some bond through overthinking. They analyze every text, every silence, every shift in your tone. Their mind becomes louder than the connection itself. Some bond through abandonment wounds. So the moment you get close, their mind screams, don't trust this. Don't rely on this. Don't let this matter. And then there are the ones who bond through self-sabotage. They want love. They crave love, but they don't believe they deserve it. So the moment they feel it, they do everything to push it away before it has the chance to leave them first. You see, everyone claims they want love until real love appears. Then suddenly, their childhood shows up, their fears show up, their coping mechanisms step into the driver's seat, and you're left wondering, why are they distancing? Why are they confused? Why do they feel far away when everything was going so well? Here's why. Most people bond emotionally from a place of fear, not a place of readiness. Love feels like home, but home has not always been safe for them. Love feels comforting, but comfort has betrayed them before. Love feels vulnerable, and vulnerability has cost them too much in the past. So what do? They retreat into themselves. They shut down emotionally. They create space. They become cold, inconsistent, distant, not because they don't feel something for you, but because they feel too much. And their old wiring tells them that feeling too much is dangerous. This is the emotional truth most people don't realize. Love is easy. Allowing love is hard, especially for someone who's been hurt by the people they trusted the most, especially for someone who always had to be strong, especially for someone who grew up believing That emotional closeness always comes with a cost. And when you show them real love, when you show up with consistency, depth, patience, emotional presence, their mind starts to break down. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because everything you're offering is something they don't know how to receive. They don't know what to do. When affection isn't chaotic, when love isn't conditional, when connection doesn't come with manipulation or instability, healthy love feels unfamiliar. Unfamiliar feels unsafe. So they back away, even if you're the person they've been praying for. Now here's the part most people never understand. They're not avoiding you. They're avoiding the version of themselves they'd have to become to be worthy of you. They're avoiding intimacy because intimacy exposes everything: the insecurities, the unhealed wounds, the fears they hide from the world. And if they've spent their entire life surviving by pretending those wounds don't exist, your emotional depth feels like a spotlight people push away. What makes them feel seen before they're ready to be seen? They push away what feels stable when stability is unfamiliar. They push away what feels healthy when they are still wired for chaos. This is why most people bond emotionally in ways that destroy the very love they're longing for. They want connection, but they're terrified of depending on it. They want closeness, but they're afraid of losing it. They want a real partnership, but they don't know how to shift from survival mode into emotional openness. So they cling in inconsistent ways. They love you deeply, but silently. They stay near, but never fully show up. They give you pieces when you deserve the whole. They feel everything, but reveal nothing. And eventually, you're left confused, hurt, and wondering why someone who clearly cares is acting like they don't. Here's the truth: they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting the fear that loving you brings up in them. And until someone learns to stop bonding through their wounds, they unintentionally push away the very connection they were hoping to build. You need to understand something about people. They don't realize how deeply their past controls their present. They think they're choosing distance because something feels off. They think they're hesitating because they're not ready. They think they're pulling away because the timing is wrong. But the truth runs deeper. They're reliving emotional patterns they never healed from, patterns that formed long before you, long before this connection, long before they even had the language to describe what they feel. Most people bond the way they learn to survive, not the way they long to love. And survival bonding is where everything starts to break down. Think about this for a moment. If someone grew up having to stay emotionally quiet to keep the peace, they bond through silence. If someone grew up feeling like affection could be taken away at any moment, they bond through insecurity. If someone grew up watching love turn into conflict, control, or abandonment, they bond through fear, even when they want connection. So when you come into their life with warmth, with consistency, with emotional presence, it doesn't land softly. It lands like a threat to everything they had to build to protect themselves. This is why they say things like, "Give me time. I just need space. I'm confused. I don't know what I want. I can't do this right now." But beneath all of that is one unspoken truth. You make me feel things I don't know how to handle. You bring emotions their coping mechanisms aren't prepared for. And instead of rising to the connection, they fall back into the only place they've ever felt safe: their emotional shell. Here's where things get even more heartbreaking. They don't consciously decide to push love away. It's automatic, reflexive, like a burned victim pulling away from warmth, just because warmth once meant pain. The moment someone touches their heart, their nervous system reacts before their mind can make sense of it. Their instinct is protect, pull back, don't get too close. Not because closeness is wrong, but because closeness has always been unpredictable. And you're caught in the middle. You see their potential. You hear the softness in their voice. You feel the connection they're too scared to lean into. You notice the moments where they almost open up and then retreat. Right when it matters, you're standing in front of them with clarity and intention while they're fighting a war inside themselves. You can't see. Let me tell you what happens next. Most people do one of two things. When this internal war begins, some people cling harder. They become overly affectionate, overly invested, overly available, hoping their love will heal the other person's fear. But clinginess doesn't heal fear, it activates it. You start giving more to someone who's withdrawing, and instead of feeling reassured, they feel overwhelmed. Not because you're too much, but because their emotional capacity is too small. The other group does the opposite. They pull back too, to protect themselves from the sting of rejection. They mirror the distance. They pretend they don't care either. They act like the connection meant less than it did. And suddenly, two people who wanted each other are trapped behind walls they didn't want to build. But here's the truth. Both groups miss. You cannot love someone into emotional readiness. You cannot fix wounds you didn't cause. You cannot outrun someone's fear of intimacy by offering them more intimacy. What you can do is understand the psychology behind their behavior. Because once you understand it, you stop taking it personally. You stop thinking their distance means indifference. You stop blaming yourself for their confusion. And most importantly, you stop shrinking your love just because they're afraid of it. Let's go deeper. When someone emotionally bonds through fear or avoidance, their brain sends them powerful messages that sound like truth. Messages like, if you get attached, you'll get hurt. If you lean in, they'll leave. If you open up, they'll see your flaws. If you depend on them, you'll lose control. If you care, you'll lose. These thoughts aren't logic. They're trauma, disguised as caution. And trauma always pushes love away before love has the chance to prove it's different. So what happens inside them? When they start bonding with you, they feel the connection and panic. They sense your consistency and doubt it. They trust you and then question why trusting feels dangerous. They imagine a future with you and immediately imagine losing it. Your presence activates both their desire to love and their fear of losing love. At the same time, that conflict is why their behavior is so confusing. One day, they're close, open, warm. The next, they're distant, cold, silent. It's not mood swings. It's emotional whiplash. They are fighting two opposite desires. Their longing for connection and their instinct for protection. And here's the part that hurts the most. They pull away from the safest person because safety is unfamiliar. They avoid the person who sees them clearly because being seen feels risky. They hesitate with the one who would never hurt them because certainty feels suspicious. This is the core truth. People who grew up around chaotic love don't trust peaceful love. They bond emotionally through anxiety, prediction, control, and emotional distance because that's the only style of love they know. Healthy love feels foreign, or worse, it feels like a trap. So they unconsciously test you. They pull away to see if you'll chase. They create silence, to see if you'll panic. They act uncertain, to see if you'll convince them. Not because they want to hurt you, but because inconsistency is the only love language their nervous system understands. But here's what you don't realize. While they're pushing you away to feel safer, they're also grieving you. At the same time, the distance they create hurts them too. The silence they build echoes in their own heart. The space they ask for feels like loss to them too. They aren't confused about you. They're confused about themselves. They're scared because you feel right. And for someone who has only known love as something painful, something unstable, something conditional, feeling something right feels wrong. But here's the turning point. People don't change. When you chase them, they don't heal. When you overextend, they don't grow. When you soften your boundaries to make love easier for them, they change. When the connection asks them to rise higher than their fear, and that only happens when you stay grounded in your own worth, when you stop trying to manage their emotions, when you stop shrinking to fit their fears, when you stop performing to make them feel safe, when you stay calm in their chaos, present but not pleading, loving but not losing yourself. That's when something inside them begins to shift. For the first time, they see a version of love that isn't suffocating or demanding or chaotic or unpredictable. They see a connection that won't punish them for needing space, but also won't collapse just because they're scared. They see commitment that's soft, not forceful, steady, not desperate. And when someone like that finally realizes that love doesn't have to hurt, doesn't have to threaten them, doesn't have to cost them their identity or freedom, they stop pushing it away because you've become the safest emotional experience they've ever encountered. And safety, real safety, is the only thing strong enough to melt emotional walls that have been there for decades. You don't lose connection because love disappears. You lose connection because fear takes over. Before either person notices what's happening, it starts quietly, softly, almost invisibly. Two people who care for each other begin reacting instead of relating. One withdraws, the other chases. One shuts down, the other overexplains. One hides their feelings, the other spills everything. What begins as a subtle imbalance slowly becomes a cycle, and once you're in it, you don't even realize you're no longer fighting each other. You're fighting your own unresolved wounds through each other. This is how most people bond, not with presence, but with protection, not with openness, but with old survival patterns they've never learned to recognize. And that's why connection collapses long before anyone says, "I can't do this anymore." It collapses in tiny silent moments that feel like nothing, until one day they feel like everything. It happens when someone texts you, but they're not really texting you. They're texting their anxious mind. It happens when someone pulls away because closeness feels like danger, even though you've given them no reason to fear you. It happens when someone says, "I'm fine," but their tone says, "I don't know how to let you in." It happens when one person tries harder while the other grows colder, not because they don't care, but because the effort overwhelms them. It happens when two nervous systems start dancing to completely different rhythms, and neither one knows how to slow down long enough to notice the truth. They are not hurting each other. They are triggering what hurt them before each other. This is the heartbreak no one talks about. The way two good people lose each other because neither learned how to stay present when emotions rise. the way childhood wounds whisper into adult relationships. And both people assume the problem is the relationship, not the wound. Empathy gets replaced with ego. Curiosity gets replaced with assumptions. Gentleness gets replaced with self-defense. Love becomes a battlefield no one meant to create, but both accidentally built. Here's how it unfolds. Without anyone realizing it, you say something small. They hear something deep. Their body reacts. Before their mind does, you see their reaction, and your own defenses rise. You pull back, or you push forward. They freeze, or shut down, or get louder, or go silent. Two stories, two perspectives, two nervous systems, trying to protect themselves in the only ways they ever learned. This is why connection gets lost, not because of the fight, but because of the fear behind the fight. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing control, fear of losing themselves, fear of caring more, fear of caring less, fear of repeating the past, fear of not being enough, fear of being too much. Fear creates distance, even when love wants closeness. But the real tragedy isn't the fear. It's the misinterpretation of fear. When someone pulls away, you think they're bored, but they're overwhelmed. When someone goes quiet, you think they don't care, but they care too much and don't know how to voice it. When someone delays responding, you think they're losing interest, but they're regulating themselves, so they don't say something. Their anxiety wrote instead of their heart. When someone becomes avoidant, you think they're detached, but they're scared of depending on someone they genuinely like. When someone becomes clingy, you think they're needy, but they're terrified of being left again. Most relationships fall apart, not because love is weak, but because interpretations are wrong. We take someone's survival style and translate it as rejection. We take someone's trauma response and translate it as betrayal. We take someone's silence and translate it as indifference. But none of these translations are the truth. You're just reading someone's past as if it's about you, and they're reading your past as if it's about them. Here's the part most people never realize until much later. Connection dies, not when communication stops, but when understanding stops. And understanding stops the moment you begin to assume instead of ask, when you begin to defend instead of listen, when you begin to protect your ego instead of protect the bond, when emotions rise, and instead of moving through them together, you move away from each other to self-soothe separately. Love can survive conflict, but it cannot survive avoidance of emotional truth. Most people never see the real issue because the real issue feels too vulnerable to admit. I'm scared you'll leave me, just like they did. I'm scared I'll lose myself if I get close to you. I'm scared of needing you. I'm scared of being truly seen. Because what if you don't like what you see? These are the confessions no one speaks out loud. So instead, they express them in disguise. Through distance, through withdrawal, through overthinking, through jealousy, through perfectionism, through emotional shutdown, through testing you, through coldness, through inconsistency. Not because they want to hurt you, but because emotional safety has never been taught, only learned the hard way. This is why emotional patterns destroy connections slowly. They operate in the dark, and most people don't have the language to name what they feel until the relationship is already slipping away. By the time they say, I didn't mean to push you away, all the pushing has already happened. By the time they say, I didn't know how to talk about it, silence has already built a wall. By the time they say, I was scared, You've already assumed it was disinterest. This is why love collapses quietly. Long before the breakup, it collapses in moments where the body says what the mouth won't. But here's the truth. Most people don't know. Your nervous system remembers safety far better than your mind does. It remembers tone. It remembers consistency. It remembers tension. It remembers withdrawal. It remembers how it felt when the person you loved suddenly shifted, and when your nervous system detects even a hint of emotional danger, it reacts instantly, before logic even arrives. That's why emotional patterns feel so hard to break. You're not reacting to the person, you're reacting to the past, through the person, and they're doing the same. Two histories, trying to build one future, without the tools to make it stable. But here's the part that gives hope. Patterns can be unlearned. When awareness becomes stronger than fear, when someone's desire to understand becomes greater than their desire to protect their pride, when two people stop asking, who's right, and start asking, what is this reaction protecting? When instead of taking distance personally, you see it as a sign that someone's nervous system is overwhelmed, not that their heart is gone. When instead of interpreting silence as rejection, you recognize it as fear. When instead of assuming the worst, you slow down long enough to ask, what story is your mind telling you right now? This is how emotional safety is built, not through perfection, but through curiosity, not through always agreeing, but through staying connected, even when you disagree, not through flawless communication, but through honest communication. Most people don't lose relationships because they're incompatible. They lose them because neither person learned how to stay present while feeling vulnerable. And here's the final truth. Your capacity to love deeply is not determined by how you behave when everything feels easy. It's determined by how you show up when your nervous system is scared and your past is triggered and vulnerability feels dangerous. But you choose connection anyway. Love is not built in comfort. It is built in the moments where two people choose to understand each other instead of fear each other. That choice, made again and again, is what turns emotional patterns from relationship killers into relationship healers. And most people never reach this level of awareness until the loss becomes the lesson. Most people never realize that the way they love is shaped more by what hurt them than by what healed them. They think they're choosing their reactions, but their body is choosing for them. Their patterns choose. Their wounds choose. Their fears choose. Their insecurities choose. Their memories choose. And only afterward does their mind try to justify it with logic. This is why emotional cycles repeat themselves, even when you desperately want to change, because you're not fighting your partner. You're fighting the parts of yourself that were built long before love ever showed up. But here's the truth people never hear enough. Patterns aren't permanent. They're just practiced. And what is practiced can be unpracticed. What is learned can be relearned. What is unconscious can become conscious. What is fear-driven can become love-driven. But it doesn't happen through wishing. It happens through awareness, through courage, through honesty, through slowing down long enough to feel what you usually avoid. Let's go deeper, because this is where real connection either transforms or breaks forever. There are three moments in every relationship where your emotional patterns show their true colors. Most people don't recognize them, but once you do, you see the whole relationship differently. The first moment, when you feel misunderstood. This moment activates the wound You think you're reacting to what they said, but you're reacting to a memory, an old one, a deep one that still feels fresh, even if you've never spoken about it. Some people shut down in this moment. Some get defensive. Some get loud. Some retreat into silence. Some become logical to avoid feeling anything at all, not because they don't care, but because being misunderstood feels like a threat to their identity, to their worth, to their emotional safety. Recognizing this is the first step to unlearning destructive patterns. Because once you see the fear, you stop assuming bad intentions. The second moment, when you feel too close or not close enough, your attachment system starts sending alarm signals. The avoidant feels crowded. The anxious feels abandoned. The secure feels curious. But secure people are rare because most people never had the safety to grow into one. In this moment, most relationships flip into the exact dynamic that destroys connection. One person pursues, and the other distances. But here's the twist. Both people are trying to protect the relationship in the only way they know. The anxious moves closer because closeness feels like safety. The avoidant moves back because distance feels like safety. Both are protecting the bond, just in opposite ways. Once you understand this, you stop taking the other person's response as rejection and see it for what it truly is, a fear response. And that awareness alone can change everything. The third moment, when vulnerability becomes required. Every real relationship hits a moment where surface level communication is no longer enough. You have to go deeper. Say what you really feel. Admit what you fear. Reveal the truth you've been hiding behind your coping mechanisms. This is the moment people avoid the most because vulnerability doesn't just expose your heart, it exposes your wounds. It exposes the parts of you you don't think are lovable, the parts you kept quiet, the parts you pretend don't hurt you. So instead of opening up, people shut down, or pick a fight, or distract themselves, or withdraw, or pretend everything is fine. Not because love is gone, but because the fear of being truly seen is stronger than the desire to be understood. This is the moment where most relationships fail, not because the bond isn't real, but because the emotional courage required to deepen it is missing. So, how do you break free from emotional patterns that have shaped you for years? It begins with one powerful commitment. I will respond consciously instead of reacting automatically. It sounds simple, but it changes everything. When you respond consciously, you create emotional pauses, pauses where you can choose clarity over chaos, compassion over defensiveness, understanding over fear. Let me show you how this looks. In real connection, when you feel triggered, pause, feel the reaction without acting on it. When you feel the urge to pull away, communicate the urge before disappearing. When you feel overwhelmed, say so instead of going silent for days. When you feel anxious, breathe before texting out of panic. When you misunderstand something, ask instead of assuming. When you feel vulnerable, lean in instead of shutting down. These tiny emotional shifts rewrite patterns that once controlled your relationships. Because here's the secret: most people never learn. Your patterns aren't just emotional, they're neurological. Every time you choose differently, you're training your nervous system to understand connection instead of fear it. This is how secure attachment is built, not through perfection, but through repetition, through small choices that feel uncomfortable at first, but healing over time, but breaking your own patterns is only half the work. You must also learn how to meet someone else's patterns with emotional intelligence. When someone gets silent, don't fill the silence with negative stories. Wait with compassion. Invite them back gently. Let them know you're not their past. When someone pulls away, don't chase. Give space without punishment or panic. Let them breathe until their nervous system resets, not as a test, but as understanding. When someone becomes emotional, don't shut them down. Hold the space, even if their emotions are different from yours. Regulate your breath so they can regulate theirs. When someone gets defensive, don't attack. Come closer emotionally, but softer energetically. Say, I'm listening. You're safe. Tell me how you feel. You disarm fear with presence, not pressure. When someone shows vulnerability, meet it. Don't mock it. Don't minimize it. Don't punish it. Vulnerability is a gift, a rare one, a brave one, a fragile one. When someone trusts you with it, they're showing you a part of their soul they don't offer to many. And how you respond determines whether the relationship grows or shuts down. Here's the truth that transforms everything. You don't need a perfect partner to build a healthy connection. You just need someone willing to grow, someone willing to understand, someone willing to break their patterns instead of blaming you for them, someone willing to heal with you instead of expecting you to heal them, someone willing to talk instead of run, someone willing to stay when things get uncomfortable, someone willing to take accountability when their wounds show up, someone willing to choose connection over ego. When two people make this choice together, love becomes stronger than fear. Communication becomes clearer than assumptions. Closeness becomes safer than distance. And all the patterns that once pushed love away begin to dissolve because the relationship is no longer running on survival. It's running on awareness. Here's the final truth of this entire journey. Love that lasts is not built by avoiding conflict. It's built by navigating conflict without abandoning each other. It's built by showing your wounds without turning them into weapons. It's built by recognizing your triggers and choosing healing instead of repeating history. It's built when two people stop saying, "This is just how I am," and start saying, "This is something I'm willing to work on." It's built through presence, through patience, through honesty, through emotional attunement, through the willingness to see each other beyond the patterns that once felt permanent. Because love, real love, is not found, it is built, and the people who build it are the ones brave enough to stop letting fear drive the connection